I'm Chris Henry, the EAA Aviation Museum Manager, and we're standing now in the Eagle hangar of the museum. This area of the museum focuses on personal courage and those who fought for our freedom. Also innovation. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of those personal stories that really exude from the different aircraft and artifacts in this part of the museum and really hopefully inspire future aviators. So we're here in front of the Huey exhibit in the museum. This Huey is a 3-tour combat vet. Tail number 733 flew with the 121st Assault Helicopter Company based out of Soc Trang in Vietnam. So when you're walking around the Huey aircraft, you'll notice there's music playing from the 1960s. That music is very important. The music was a very big part of the Vietnam experience. And those songs that are in there are picked for a specific reason. Those are the songs that the crews of our unit, the 121st, all said were their favorite songs. But what it's coming out of is an actual transistor radio that our crew chief had on the aircraft. It's the actual radio. We replaced the insides with an MP3 player and upgraded speaker, so you're now hearing what they listen to coming out of what they listen to it on in the back bay of the helicopter. Right next to that is the rocket tubes, and you'll notice there's beer cans sticking out of the rocket tubes. What those beer cans were is just simply their favorite beers that they drank. Why are they in the rocket tubes? That's a weird place for them, right? Well, they're in there because Vietnam was humid, really humid and hot. So what they did was they would fly their missions, and after they fired their rockets, they would stick the beer in the rocket tubes and cool off the beer so that when they landed, they'd have beer that was at least a little cooler than what it would have been if it was just straight out of the cannon sitting in their tent. So now we're standing in front of the museum's F4U-4 Corsair, and this aircraft came to us in the 1980s. The restoration that was done on it was really a restoration that set the bar by our restoration folks over at Weeks. John Hopkins led that charge. And for years, the airplane was on display in a World War II paint scheme as a tribute to Kenneth Walsh, America's first Corsair ace. It wasn't until 2020, when we were doing some research on the aircraft, that we discovered that this aircraft flew in Korea with VF-32, and at one point was flown by a Medal of Honor recipient named Tom Hudner. If you've seen the movie or read the book Devotion, it chronicles that squadron and those people. Why it's important to talk about this aircraft is because Jesse Brown, America's first African-American naval aviator, flew in VF-32, and on December 4th, 1950, lost his life on a mission near the Chosin Reservoir. Tom Hudner crash-landed his good airplane behind enemy lines to try to save Jesse. Unfortunately, was unsuccessful. When he came back from that cruise, he was given this aircraft as a replacement airplane for the one that he lost in North Korea. This airplane was then taken off display over to restoration, where that same gentleman, John Hopkins, who restored it the first time, was able to recreate a masterpiece, if you will, and put the airplane back in its actual paint job that it wore when it was on the USS Leyte in VF-32. We're able to tell that story now and talk about Korea, a conflict that most Americans really don't get a ton of insight into. So that's sort of a behind-the-scenes look and of what it means to be the caretaker of these aircraft. As the museum manager, the artifacts, the aircraft, those are, of course, front and center of what you're taking care of. But if you dig a little deeper, what you're really taking care of are the legacies and the stories that are attached to these aircraft. And it's something that every one of us that works on the museum staff is very proud of and we're very careful with. And really proud of our museum. Want you to come out and hopefully enjoy it, take a look. I know there's a lot of things going on the grounds, but our museum is very worth the trip over to check out.